Hey, What Next listener. Before we start the show, I want to let you know about a story coming up a little bit later. It's from one of our partners, SAP. AI comes at you fast. If you don't get reliable and relevant advice, your business might miss out. Whether you're looking to automate tasks or embed AI in your business processes, SAP can help. To learn more, head to sap.com/AI and stick around for expert advice on how to embrace AI with confidence. Quick heads up here at the top, there's some spicy language ahead. You've been warned. Sam, I'll start here. How did you know that Project 2025 had become a political buzzword?
It's interesting. I've been following Project 2025 for a long time, basically since it started. But it was only in the past couple of months that I saw it everywhere.
Sam Adler-Bell hosts the Know Your Enemy podcast.
Welcome to part 4 of our series, Project 2025, How Democracy Dies. Make sure you follow.
And when he says Project 2025 has been everywhere, he means everywhere.
I just started reading Project 2025, and yeah.
It's on TikTok, it's on cable news.
And you, I'm sure, have seen their agenda. Project 2025. Randy, can you believe they put that thing in writing?
Suddenly, it seemed like this phrase was on everybody's lips, and it was sort of being referred to as this like demonic plan from the right, but it reached a level of just total saturation in political media, I feel like, in the past few months.
Even though this phrase has become so familiar, so fast, it's worth breaking down exactly what Project 2025 is. It calls itself a presidential transition project. It's based out of the right-wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation. Over 100 conservative organizations helped shape it. It offers dozens of conservative policy proposals. It gives conservatives a way to pre-apply to jobs in a future Republican administration. It offers training for people who want to enter civil service. Think of it as a kind of easy-bake government in waiting for any conservative, but primarily for Donald Trump.
The perspective of the people involved in Project 2025 was that Trump's first presidency had some serious flaws. In particular, that he wasn't able to surround himself with sufficiently loyal and ideological and competent staff.
That strikes me as true. But is Donald Trump ready for that feedback?
No. I think the problem from the very beginning of Project 2025 was that they were trying to solve for a problem they could not name.
Back in January, Sam wrote this article for the New York Times. He saw conservative thinkers lining up behind Project 2025, and he actually thought this project could be doomed. He knew Trump hates being managed. And last week, Sam seemed like a sage.
The director of Project 2025, which is a right-wing Heritage Foundation policy blueprint prepared for the next Republican president, now stepping down following criticism from former President Donald Trump. Now,
I should note the Trump campaign appeared to cheer Paul Danz's departure tonight, even though he is an alum of the Trump administration. He served in the OPM office.
Were you surprised when you saw the head of Project 2025 was gone?
I was surprised. I was especially amazed to read the quote from Trump's campaign manager that said, "Reports of Project 2025's demise would be greatly welcomed and should serve as notice to anyone or any group trying to misrepresent their influence with President Trump and his campaign. It will not end well for you."
Woof. It's like a threat.
It is.
It always struck me that Donald Trump operates like a mob boss. And the first rule of mob bosses is don't write anything down. And a 900-page manifesto is like the opposite of that.
Yeah, I mean, think about when Trump ran for re-election in 2020, there wasn't even a Republican platform. You don't need a platform. You just need to say, you're going to get more Trump.
Today on the show, Project 2025 was meant to telegraph unity on the right. So how did it end up telegraphing the exact opposite? I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around. This episode is brought to you by SAP. First, the bad news. SAP Business AI will not help you generate cubist versions of your family's holiday photos, but it will help you understand which supplier is best to help you roll out your plant-based packaging in Southeast Asia, or identify the training your junior project manager needs to rise up the ranks, or automate repetitive tasks while you focus on big innovations. So you can be ready for the next opportunity. Revolutionary technology, real-world results. That's SAP Business AI. This episode is brought to you by Home Chef. Everyone dreads the what should we have for dinner question. All to inevitably order takeout from the same old place. It might be the easiest option, but it never really feels good. So if you'd rather enjoy a home-cooked meal without the stress of planning ahead, Home Chef makes everything really easy and even saves you money. The meal kit I got from Home Chef, it had crispy teriyaki tofu tacos, butternut squash risotto, French onion penne with mushrooms, each meal ready in less than an hour, and sure to please even my pickiest eater. In fact, the teriyaki tofus were so good, I saved the recipe so I could make them at home anytime I want. Whether you prefer classic meal kits with pre-portioned ingredients and easy instructions, speedy recipes ready in less than 30 minutes, oven-ready kits with pre-chopped ingredients or quick microwavable meals that assemble in minutes, Home Chef has you and the entire family covered for delicious meals without the hassle. And it's not only convenient, but it can be economical too. Home Chef says their customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 18 free meals, plus free desserts for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box. Going over to homechef.com/whatnext. That is homechef.com/whatnext for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. You heard that right. Homechef.com/whatnext. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. I'm wondering if you can give some history here, because while there's been this successful effort by Democrats to make Project 2025 into a bugaboo for their voters, you and others have pointed out Washington think tanks have been doing a version of what Project 2025 is doing, like laying out transition plans, for forever. So can you explain that?
Yeah. So this kind of document, a document where the conservative movement and its organizations writes down everything that they want, is not new at all. Heritage has been doing this kind of thing since Reagan. And the story goes that Reagan implemented 2/3 of these policy goals within, the first couple years of his administration.
So real success.
A real success. And Heritage has always played this role of being the furthest right but serious, policy egghead group in Washington. So it's not new. And also, we should say that liberals do this too. If you look for on the websites over the years of various liberal think tanks like the Center for American Progress, you'll see a version of the same thing from the left. This is not entirely new.
Tick off for me, what are the top 3 things that make the Project 2025 document weird? What are the things it proposes?
This might be slightly more than 3, but I can be quick. It proposes relaxing child labor laws. It proposes eliminating the Department of Education and cutting funding for Head Start. It is going to require government programs to prioritize, quote unquote, the biblical definition of the family, quote, comprised of a married mother, father, and their children, meaning undermining gay parents and gay families like mine. They refer to gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth as, quote, a social contagion, and call for eliminating protections for trans kids in schools under Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. They want to ban pornography, which they also say is responsible for, quote, the propagation of transgender ideology. And then there's an extreme anti-abortion agenda that's included in this document. It calls for, quote, pushing as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America. and getting the FDA to reverse its approval of mifepristone.
Yeah, the abortion pill.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me a little bit about what this document says about how the folks who support Donald Trump would go about implementing a massive conservative agenda on day one?
Yeah. I think the biggest A1 story here about staffing in this document is that it calls for reinstituting a policy that Trump briefly instituted in his first administration, which is called Schedule F, which sounds really boring, but it's a way of reclassifying civil servants, bureaucrats, as political appointees. So there's two kinds of employees of the executive branch. There are people who are appointed by the president, and there are people who are permanent bureaucrats. They can stay over from administration to administration, and they're not political appointees, meaning they are not necessarily loyal to one party or the other.
This is the deep state in MAGA lingo.
The deep state. We're talking deep state. Yeah. To the extent there is such a thing as a deep state, these people are the deep state. And
Schedule F lets you get rid of them, right?
A lot of them. You can reclassify quite a lot of civil servants as political appointees instead. And the idea is, as the listeners probably understand, is that you can replace people who are at least nominally there just to do good government work with people who are personally and ideologically loyal to Trump. And that's a huge part of what they want to do.
And there's even like a LinkedIn sort of thing associated with Project 2025, where there's a group of people pre-vetted. They've talked about their favorite conservative books and leaders, and you can really it's like you can speed date your new deep state.
Your White House. Yeah, your new deep state. Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Yes, they've described it as a LinkedIn for conservatives. Anybody who wants to be a part of the next Trump administration can, upload their resume to this website, and then if they get far enough along, then they can, they'll have to fill out these questions that ask them about what kind of conservative they are, basically, and just how loyal they would be to the person in the White House.
It's interesting to look at all of these priorities that are laid out here, because some of this stuff is stuff I could see Donald Trump easily signing off on. Like, for instance, on immigration. There's an idea here like, let's not give loan access to students at schools that provide in-state tuition to illegal aliens, in quotes, right? I could see Donald Trump being like, yeah, sure, that's, anything with immigrants that puts them down, like that's a slam dunk for me. But the other stuff in here, some of it, like stuff about contraception and abortion, it feels like a tougher sell with Trump, who likes to wobble back and forth on issues of reproductive health. So how much did it actually reflect Trump, this document?
The way to understand this document is it's a product of trying to bring together every single conservative movement organization to get them to sign onto a single document. One of the things that hasn't been reported on as much is that this is actually an incoherent document. There are proposals in this document for more tariffs and more protectionist trade policy.
Very Trumpian.
And then there's counter proposals for engaging in much more sort of classic neoliberal free trade orthodoxy. And so in certain respects, it reflects Trump's agenda. In certain respects, it doesn't. I think that it would be wrong for us to give the impression that Trump really has a set of like ideological principles that he wants to be reflected in this document or in his own platform, rather than that he just wants to win. So the problem with the abortion stuff, which is the main reason, the reporting suggests the main reason Trump has soured on Project 2025 in recent months, is that he doesn't want to say all this anti-abortion stuff. He knows it's a loser.
Yeah, I mean, he eliminated abortion almost completely from the Republican Party platform.
Yes, exactly. A platform, it should be noted, which was put together by Russ Vought, who is also a key convener and contributor to Project 2025. So when we get to the question of, is it true that Trump didn't know anything about Project 2025 and it has nothing to do with him? Both platforms are written by some of the same people. But yes, I I think that Trump has realized in the past few months, especially, that abortion's a loser for Republicans basically everywhere. It's the Democrats' best issue. Of course, he's responsible for creating the status quo on abortion by putting anti-abortion Supreme Court justices in place to overturn Roe. But now he wants to put the cat back in the bag. He thinks that we shouldn't be saying all this crazy stuff about abortion. We should have strategic ambiguity on the abortion question. And Project 2025 has made that impossible. And that's the main reason he's mad. That's the main reason he's distanced himself from it. This story is so symptomatic of everything that's crazy about Trump and the relationship he has to the broader conservative movement in the Republican Party, because the Republican Party, the conservative movement, has refashioned itself entirely in his image, and it's still not good enough for him. And one of the reasons that it's impossible for him to do what he's trying to do, which is to say, I've got nothing to do with these people, I don't know them, I don't know what Project 2025 even is that there is no longer any light between his campaign, the Trump movement, and the conservative movement more broadly. Like, that's been the whole project of the past few years, is that every single person in the conservative movement is pro-Trump. And people who aren't have got kicked out. So it's a consequence of Trump's megalomania that he can't plausibly claim that these people weren't doing his bidding.
We'll be back after a quick break.
This podcast is brought to you by Slate Studios and SAP. AI is moving so fast. If you don't get reliable and relevant advice, your business might miss out. Welcome to Dear Artie, an advice column from SAP, where we tackle the tricky questions at the intersection of AI and business. Here's our expert, the technology futurist, Ian Kahn.
Hi, I'm excited to dive into today's question.
Dear Artie, the supply chain has been a friend and foe to my company. Can AI make us more resilient? Signed, Supply Chained to Uncertainty.
Hey Supply, here's how AI in the supply chain can help. AI can massively automate data analytics and understand the movement of your goods. AI can point out weak links, market demand trends, optimal logistics, and other important aspects that impact the top and bottom lines for the business. Take the example of a large grocery chain that has hundreds of vendors spread through the country. In some cases, you may need to reroute shipments to other stores, such as in the case of fresh produce, a good that can go bad very fast. Managing such a supply chain is heavily dependent on the data provided, and AI can help optimize this information so that your supply chain works at its optimal levels.
Embrace AI with confidence. Head to sap.com/AI to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Cozy Earth and their luxurious bedding. It's got the power to transform your home into a sanctuary. Cozy Earth curates a set of unique essentials, from clothing to skincare to, sheets and quilts and blankets. All the details are thought through. When they sent me my own set of bedding, they arrived in a cute canvas bag I could reuse later. Inside that bag were their best-selling bamboo sheets made from 100% premium viscose from bamboo. You know, the good stuff. When you place your own order for sheets like this, you'll enjoy a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. That's a decade of unparalleled comfort and support. So upgrade your nights and transform your days with Cozy Earth. Get up to 40% off at cozyearth.com/whatnext using the code WhatNext. Don't forget to tell them we sent you in the post-purchase survey to get free socks. One thing we haven't really talked about when it comes to Project 2025 is how unpopular the policies being bandied about in this document are. A recent poll found that the more people became familiar with the project, the more uneasy they got. Of hundreds of registered voters polled last month, only 11% of those who knew about Project 2025 liked it. So you can see why Donald Trump has been trying to distance himself from what's in here. Sam says this document also highlights the differences that do still exist between conservative ideologues and Trump, the opportunist.
Like I said, I think a lot of what's in this document is the same things conservatives have wanted for a long time. If you look under the hood of movement conservatism in any era, you find a lot of crazy shit. Because movement conservatives, especially social conservatives, have some really extreme Christian nationalist views.
But were they embarrassed about the crazy shit before? Or quiet about it?
They were quieter about it. And the thing to remember about the Republican Party is that the conservative movement has always conceived of itself as a aggressive interloper in Republican politics. And so they would always be pushing for more right-wing policy ideas to become mainstream in Republican politics. And that kind of succeeded at a certain point. But the people involved with movement conservatism have always sort of still felt like they're outsiders. So putting on paper like this is what we want, it's because movement conservatism is more like a social movement within a party, as opposed to just a party that thinks about, okay, we need to just say the things that will win us the election.
You mean they're not thinking politically?
Not always. They really are ideologically committed to some very strange stuff. Now, Trump...
He thinks completely politically.
At this point, he does.
So we're talking at this weird moment, though, for this project, where it's been this buzzword for Democrats. Trump hasn't liked that. And then just in the last week, the person who was heading up the project was fired, let go, no longer has a job, reportedly at the behest of the Trump campaign. And to me, I look at that and I think, well, hold it. All these conservatives who are like getting ready to join the army here for Project 2025, are they now on the outs with the Trump campaign? Because at the same time, it seems like Project 2025 is staffed with people that Trump very much trusts.
Yeah. It's a weird moment. Right now, Trump recognized that Project 2025, just even the name Project 2025, has become an albatross for the conservative movement, for his campaign. And they have aggressively distanced themselves from the project. They've, it seems, forced the person who was heading the project, Paul Dance, to resign from leading it. And there's reports that it's basically winding down.
How do you wind back a 900-page book and a database full of resumes?
You can't. I've got the policy book on my laptop. I can look at what they want. It doesn't go away. But I think we should think about this in two ways. One is that this is all more or less a charade.
Which part? Which part is the charade?
The whole effort on the campaign's part, on the part of Trump's campaign managers, Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles, to sort of say, this Project 2025 thing, we hate it. We hope it's dead. It's only because it became a political liability. I mean, if it hadn't, none of this would have happened. And the people who are involved with Project 2025 are going to be in the administration. I guarantee that a large percentage of the people who contributed to that document, who wrote the policy proposals, certainly the people who came up with the ideas for staffing, a contributor to the document, somebody who helped write it, told Rolling Stone, in an anonymous quote, Trump can try to distance himself from this, but 70 to 80% of the people who wrote the book are going to be in his second administration. The cabinet, undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, the senior advisors, they're all going to be the foot soldiers in a second Trump administration. They're all his people. And this is true. I mean, the thing is that Project 2025, it casts too wide a net. I mean, it's so many people, and so many people who are ideologically aligned with Trump's agenda. Trump doesn't want to be associated with Project 2025 because the Democrats have succeeded in making it toxic in the minds of the public. But when it comes down to it, a lot of this agenda is going to be Trump's agenda, and a lot of the people who put it together are going to be in his White House.
I do wonder if we can get a little meta for a second.
Let's do it.
What the fight over Project 2025 reveals to you about how a Trump administration might operate. Like, to me, it feels like Oh, yeah. This is what it was like.
Yes.
A total mess.
Yes. I totally agree. It's such a reminder. It puts you right back in that place of the early days of the Trump administration, where every day there's a new article about the infighting within the administration, about backbiting and the sort of den of snakes quality of his White House. We forget that the weakness of his administration is all because of this problem of, what I think of as, you said, mob boss, this sort of patriarchal version of authority that he wants to govern by. It grinds against the sort of logic of the executive branch, which is a huge rational bureaucracy in principle. And yes, the Godfather can run his family and his organized crime syndicate according to the principle of don't write anything down, kiss the ring, and do everything I say. But you can't really run an entire executive branch for the largest economy in the world that way.
Does that give you some comfort? Like, even if Trump wins, it's still going to be like he doesn't know how to work the control panel?
I think it's the coldest comfort, but it is what's available to us. Is that, and the irony of it, I want to underscore, the irony of it is that solving for that problem, the problem of the den of snakes, the problem of the irrationality with which Trump staffed his White House, the problem of that conflict between Trump's mode of authority and the way that a rational modern bureaucracy works, that was the problem that Project 2025 was trying to solve for. And the consequence of that, their reward for trying to solve that problem, is this fucking nightmare mess for Trump, the conservative movement, for Heritage Foundation. It shows that it's just not going to work. Trump's going to be Trump, and he wants to be in charge, and everybody else has to be his minions.
Sam, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really grateful for what you do.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Sam Adler-Bell is the co-host of the Know Your Enemy podcast. And that's our show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Madeline Ducharme, and Anna Phillips. We are led by Alicia Montgomery with a little boost from Susan Matthews. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.